What's up, everybody? It's Chad. We're back again with another episode of Ask Chad Grassy Logic. This week, we actually don't have a guest. It's just going to be me and Gino. Going to give you guys some updates on what's going on around the nation, the state, and stuff like that. Because a couple things did happen. You know, New Mexico's been kind of, I wouldn't say quiet the last couple of weeks, but it's been a little chill the past couple of weeks ever since we had.
Not much going on right now.
No. The most we had was, a recall on some suckers that just had too much THC in them. So, I mean, that was about it. And to be honest, no one really gave a shit when I did post about it. So I was like, well, it's not worthy to talk about, I guess.
Oh, yeah, we'll just let it go.
Yeah.
Don't have to worry about it.
Right. And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, there was a GH product that was recalled recently because it was supposed to have 50 milligrams per sucker when there's two suckers in there, and it had 100 milligrams. So it was supposed to be the medical version, but it was sold as rec. And so if you ended up with that, congratulations. You probably got high shit.
That's the medical version. There's another argument for your medical card. Goodness.
Oh, I keep telling people that, you can get up to, I believe, 800 milligrams like in a product when you have a medical cannabis card. So like you're not stuck at the 100 milligram per package thing. Like you can get significantly more. I've bought 500 milligrams worth of edibles in one package before.
Oh, in one package.
Yeah, in one package. Yeah. Not like one big gummy. I mean, I guess you could, but like per package.
Only the OG pros can handle that.
Right. And the weirdest thing about it, and this whole thing, it was stupid. So there's a product in the state that's 100 milligrams per piece, right? Mm-hmm. And this is the reason why it got recalled, really, is because since it wasn't pieced out correctly or dosed correctly, is one of the real reasons why it got recalled. And there's a product out, and it's 100 milligrams, but 10 milligrams a piece, but there's lines in the gummy to where you can cut it. So you know what 10 milligrams is. So what the sucker needed was the little lines to tell you what 10 milligrams was, and that's the real reason. So that's why they're like, no, you can't do it. The sucker itself should have been 10 milligrams versus the whole thing being 50 milligrams, which, to be honest, it's stupid nuanced, over-regulation bullshit. So yeah. That's
not the first time having lines got you in trouble.
Exactly. So...
Not that I know anything about any of that stuff.
Right, and it wasn't like a real reason to panic. It was good to know because, if you did happen to take that product, you're like, damn, I'm pretty stoned, and that's the reason why. So, yeah.
It's like, man, I got to watch out for those dosage. That's way too much for me. They're trying to microdose 2 grams now.
I know, right? 2 milligrams, and it's like, whoa.
This is not working.
So if you were somebody that was affected and you believe that you want the correct product or the correct dosage, hit up the dispensary that you got it from and they'll make it right. But for the most part, most people are like, I'm not taking that shit back.
Yeah. Or keep it
free weed.
That's why everybody was like, shh.
Yeah, it's like, dude, shut the fuck up. Cool. So yeah, but that's really all that's happened this last week since the legislative session has ended. A little nuanced things here going on in the industry here and there. I think most people are preparing for 420. Since that's next month. I know, right?
No.
Yeah, every year.
I was getting ready for 315.
The 315 was 315. Oh, Austin. Oh, man, that's a good one.
Well, that's a good one, too.
Yeah.
But no, the Ides of March.
Oh, yes.
Any Shakespeare fans out there?
I don't know. Maybe.
Could be.
Yeah.
Beware the Ides of March.
Well, Mario 310 or, Mar 10.
Mar 10.
Yeah. It was the other day. Or was it 2 days ago? So Mario Day.
I like how they have different days on there. Actually, the 4th was kind of get things done because you should march forth and get done. Hey, I don't come up with this shit. I have a website that I check the daily holidays.
Pi Day's coming up too, right?
Pi Day passed.
It did pass.
No.
Isn't it?
It didn't. 314.
Yeah, so that's
314 would be Pi Day.
12th, right?
No, it's the 14th.
Today's the 14th?
No, today's the 12th.
Today's the 12th is what I meant. What is today's date?
I have to look at my computer.
All right.
Your phone.
All right, well, we're getting off topic anyway.
The 11th.
It's the 11th,
so
okay.
March 14th would be Pi Day, 3.14. That's as far as I go.
Yeah. Too many holidays. I mean, cannabis has 2 on its own. I mean, there's even a psilocybin day. I think it's somewhere in August or September or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then
actually, I saw something about psilocybin in some of my prep this morning, too.
Oh, really? What'd you see?
They were just talking about how effective it is for, what was it? Not bipolar, but different personalities.
Oh, the multiple personality disorder.
Something like that. Yeah, it's like one small dose is good for almost like a month or so.
And you know what? Like, I believe it because, I've taken mushrooms myself too, for the PTSD stuff. And, you know, like you do get like, it's like it teaches you something. And I think what it is when you take it again, it reminds you, and then you're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. And so like that's what it kind of feels like, and that's why I think it's called golden teacher. Like, you know, the strain, you know, I believe mushrooms are called strains because they're technically not plants. They're more closer related to humans than they are plants. Yeah, it's a fungus. It's not a plant. And so, you know, I believe it is strain with that. But the golden teacher one, I believe that's the reason why it's called that, is because it teaches you things. And that's how I felt as well too. When I even microdosed, it felt like being a teaching moment.
So if I tried that, perhaps it would teach me to be financially responsible.
It can't do the impossible, man.
No.
All right, so let's get on to today's episode and everything. Thank you everybody for, you know, putting up with our shenanigans here in the first few minutes of the show. So we're gonna.
No, that's St. Patrick's Day. That's next week.
Holy crap! I forget. Yeah, it's St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
Holy crap! Oh, wow, this month is full of them. So Trump is. Okay, so let me reword this a little bit. Let's rewind that back.
Okay.
So it appears that there's a source within the administration of the Trump administration right now that is signaling that Trump is going to sign an executive order this summer. And this executive order is going to create a decriminalization commission. And what all that is, it's pretty much just a committee, just a bunch of politicians put together, and they're going to study decriminalization in the state. And you notice I'm saying decriminalization and not rescheduling, and that's because we already, you know, have rescheduling going and everything. This right here is going a little bit further than that, and it's actually what we want is decriminalization on the federal level. And what this is doing is saying, okay, we're going to study and see the impact of decriminalization in our nation with this commission. Now, this is going to be announced this summer, and it's a strategic thing. And you know, we all know that the midterms are coming up this fall.
Oh yeah.
So, and then primaries are this summer. And so for
Texas
a lot of,
just had their primary.
Yeah, Texas, for here in New Mexico, it's the summer, and some other states
June,
too.
I think.
Yeah. And you know, some other states it's, you know, right now, of course, you know. But you know, a lot of us are going to be doing stuff throughout the year to into the summer.
Yeah.
And I believe that this is a political ploy for votes, unfortunately, because what the commission means is that it's just going to be a group of people. They're going to take probably a year, and it even says in the document that I read, they're not going to announce anything until 2027. So they're going to create it this year. Even if they do come up with the results in 2 months, you know, they're going to wait to the following year after the election's over to announce what their findings are and what they suggest to do. I don't know if this is going to be bipartisan, multi-partisan, or, you know, it's just going to be one party doing this. Hopefully it's going to be a multi-party kind of commission.
I think it shouldn't necessarily be a multi-party thing. I mean, you would like party representation, but they should get representatives. If they want to look at decriminalization, they should get representatives from law enforcement, representatives from cannabis growers, users, you know, people that are in the industry in the states that are legal.
Yeah.
And because like I said, I think I've been saying for a long time, I would like a study to show the effect or has anything changed since the legalization of cannabis in all these states. Has crime gotten worse? Has anything else gotten worse, or anything else that could be related to anything else? You know, so how much of that legalization and the number of people that are using it, has it really affected or changed the way that anybody else does business? Because we all know there are a lot of people using it on the traditional market. So the fact that it's legalized and they're getting all their tax money now, you know, has anything really changed for anybody?
No, and that's a good point. You know, and several times throughout the legislature, you know, they'll ask, you know, the police officers and everything, you know, have there been any significant issues due to cannabis? Or even here at the city council hearings, you know, they'll ask, you know, the police. And from what I heard recently, it's like, no, nothing too significant when it comes to cannabis, you know, just regular everyday shit, you know?
Yeah, you don't see anybody that's dropped a gunny and got belligerent with a cop. You know, you just don't see that.
He may have been confused with the
He may
cop.
have been confused. I'm going like,
wait, what do you mean? Oh, fuck.
I'm in the wrong house? What?
Oh, shit, again?
No. Hate when that happens.
Yeah, so, and this commission, you know, they could, and hopefully they do speak to, you know, industry professionals, law enforcement, teachers. You know, I really hope they speak to teachers, because there's a lot of fear mongering when it comes to kids and stuff like that, you know, and I believe, you know, if they talk to parents and teachers, they'll get a better idea of where they really are, you know, because teachers, they're with the kids more than the kids are with their parents.
Yeah.
You know, so they see exactly what's really going on, and they're with the kids away from the parents. You know how kids are away from their parents. You know what I mean? So they get a real understanding of how kids really are today versus the ones that they're pretending to be at home.
Pretending to be at home. Yeah. And his parents, teachers.
I know.
Yeah. I just think it's funny that you would try and see what the effect is on kids.
Yeah.
But for me, I want to see what is the effect on adult use and how it's affected. Like you say, when you talk to some of the cops or you talk to some of the professionals that are out there, it's like, do you have a problem with using it in the workplace? Do you have a problem when you're finding it with your employees? Is it something that's around some of the crime scenes or something else like that? It's just, is it just one of those, is it any more than it has been in the past, or is it even affecting things that way at all? Because to be honest, the only thing I've noticed about the legalization of cannabis since I've been here is occasionally you'll get to a few corners where you're like, oh, and then also that my Wednesday afternoons are taken up. So.
You guys didn't know we film on Wednesdays.
We film on Wednesdays. Except for
it's taken up by a stoner.
Except for the Twitch viewers.
Yeah, except for the Twitch viewers. You guys are watching it live right now, so congratulations.
Yeah, warts and all.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, honestly, since it's gone legal and since I've been working with you, I've learned a whole lot more about how this all works, how the whole industry works, how the whole cannabis thing, from the growers we've talked to, the people that have to do with lights and chemicals and all this other stuff like that. I've learned a lot more. And I've met a lot of people that are just pretty awesome people. So,
yeah. And we're just regular people, you know, like wanting to make this a legitimate business, you know, and we want to be legitimate business people, you know, and don't get me wrong, some of us have a lot to learn, but, you know, some of us are willing to learn and do the work to do it. But, you know, that's all we want, you know, is to be seen as a regular business. And we're on our way there.
It's an interesting thing that I've noticed that, you know, from what the traditional market used to be, because I had relatives that were in the traditional game, had an uncle that would, in any time, but I just never took advantage of it. You know, to hear, if I could think about my uncle talking about like, oh man, you know, the CCD is going to come down and take a look at things or something like that, or did I get my permits done for this, or did I get my taxes done? You know, all this other stuff like that, where they didn't have to worry about all that. But you see, everybody has the concern, and they want to, like you said, they want to be business people. They want to make sure that you get things done right. So it's an interesting thing to see and recognize. It definitely blows that whole preconception of the stoner dealer that's, you know, just trying to get everybody high.
Yeah, you know, and that is such a huge misconception. Don't get me wrong; those people exist, but
like you talk about the stigma and the preconceived notions that everybody has. You know?
And don't get me wrong; those people do exist. You know, they are real, but they're not the minority and you know, the community and everything. And I just want to say shout out to Justin. Thank you for the subscription 2 months in a row. So appreciate it, man. Hell yeah.
Way to go.
But yeah, you know, and it's unfortunate that cannabis just gets a lot of, you know, blame on certain things too, and so, you know, all of the stigma, and we're so overly regulated right now anyway that, you know, it's kind of ridiculous the way that they're treating it. But maybe something will come from this commission. I've said many times before, guys, executive orders are not law. They don't change law. They're more of a heavy suggestion, and so it's a possibility this commission may never happen as well. They could just say we're not doing that and not do it. But usually when a commission like this is asked to be created, it usually is, because there's really no point of not doing it. Yeah, you know, like I wouldn't see a reason for them not to create this commission, because it's worth studying. You know, in my opinion, will it be studied correctly? Will the data be collected correctly? I have no clue. I hope.
I would hope so.
Yeah, I hope.
Yeah, like I said, that's what I think, like a lot of that diversity in there. Bring, you know, some of the people from the Department of Ag to come in and talk about not just the cannabis, but the hemp and the whole thing like that. Put it all together. Take a look at it. If anything, maybe some of the discussions and some of the things that they're looking at might help with the whole rescheduling thing. And make it even more likely to reschedule than anything else.
Well, we really want descheduling. You know, that would really open it up more. Don't get me wrong. The rescheduling thing would help in a sense. And they may still do it. You know, they may, like they did with hemp, separate things by definition, and, you know, may make Schedule 3 the medical side, and then non-scheduled adult use stuff. And if you want a medical product on the medical side of things, on the pharmaceutical side, you would have to go through that whole process, et cetera, to get it.
I could see it something like an aspirin or something like that, where you can get like allergy meds or something like that, that you can have particular doses that you can buy over the counter. But if you want the good stuff, or you want those higher doses that you need for medications, then you can have those prescriptions and you can get those. It's the same thing. Like you said, medical patients get a few more.
Yeah. And they do. And, there's going to be different ways that this can go. Because right now we already have like 3 different industries, and I've said this so many times, and this horse is powder by now. I've been kicking it so much. We have the legal industry, that's, the traditional market. Then we have the state industry, and then we have the hemp industry. And then we could possibly, enter into the medical industry with it too. Boom. And we keep separating it. What I think needs to happen, if we are going to do that, I don't think there's going to be a way to get around not having more than cannabis being separated at least once, and that's between the medical and, the non-scheduled cannabis. Just for the fact of, pharmaceuticals and getting stuff out there, unless, there's another process that they can use an unscheduled thing being put on there, to be used for pharmaceutical purposes. But we're going to have to bring back hemp and cannabis together. We're going to have to stop the separation of hemp and cannabis. And then, of course, the state legalization stuff is going to be a little more consolidated once the federal government comes in and gives us some guidelines. I just hope to God they don't tax the living shit out of us on the federal government side, because it's already bad enough we're getting taxed a lot on the state side.
Someone has not taken a look at our tax code, have they?
I know. And you know what? Like when we had Deb Holland on, I think I was speaking to one of her assistants, before, and I'd mentioned 280E. She wasn't too sure about 280E. And I was like, oh crap, I forget. Like, this is a cannabis industry kind of term, where only people in the cannabis industry really know this exists, outside of people who are history buffs and know, that Al Capone got popped for that. But
we'll get into that later.
Yeah, we'll get into that a little bit later. Actually, there's a conversation about taxes. I'll give that a quick briefing. But like, not a lot of them are aware that even 280E exists. That's how much of a, I feel like, under the rug kind of thing it was for so long until cannabis came up. They're like, oh shit, well, we have no choice but to force you guys to do 280E, but we wanted to kind of keep that one secret for the guys that are trying to slick by and think they're going to get through and get by us and everything, because it just pretty much means that you have to pay taxes even though you sell illegal drugs.
Look, there are so many different hidden taxes for just about everything, not just cannabis. Just in general, as U.S. citizens, it is just amazing how much is actually paid into taxes in so many different ways. How much $1 that you spend would get taxed in different areas, and how many times you get taxed over and over again. So just about that. But the whole 280E thing, I'm still trying to wrap my head around what exactly that means. But like you said, we'll get to a lot of
a little bit later in the episode. We'll get to it and everything. It's just, I'll get back to this. And like I said, this is purely for votes. It's being, talked about during a midterm cycle, where the numbers for this administration doesn't look great. We have, shit going on overseas, shit going on at home. There's stuff going on in different areas of the world. So like, it's just a madhouse right now all over the globe. And so to distract people, this might be one of the ways to do it, to get voters to be like, oh shit, actually something's being done with cannabis. Maybe I'll vote this way. But you have to know the fine details of things. It's not going to be announced until after the election is over in 2027, which we don't even know when in 2027, or if it actually will be in 2027. They plan to announce in 2027. It could get pushed to 2028, 2029, 2030, until the next administration, or never. So that's another possibility that everyone has to keep in mind, is they could never announce anything on this as well either. There's no law forcing them to do anything. It's an executive order. And so there's really not much backing, the process of this.
Well, like you said, it's just a really big suggestion.
Yeah, it really is like a big pretty please.
Sorry, my bad. I didn't mean to do that. I was checking on something and.
Yeah, and I want to let everybody know that this information came from a source. So the news articles I've been seeing, they quote a source, and this source in particular, he was the one that gave them information that Donald Trump was going to, sign an executive order to reschedule cannabis. That was a very good prediction, and almost too predictable, because it was the rescheduling thing was already in process already. You know, Biden had started it, and all the executive order did was just again ask them, hey, can you guys finish the process?
Yeah.
You know, hurry up and finish. And
but I think I saw something about the commission being formed, and it was just like a matter of who gets onto the commission and what exactly they're going to do.
yeah,
Or it's just another way, like you said, to get votes that are going to be there for the elections and the midterms coming up in November.
yeah, definitely. And you know, that's kind of how I see it. You know, so and I'll let you guys know real quick. You know, the source, he was. It looks like a direct source. Have a little bit of experience when dealing with sources. So when you have a direct source, that means they got the information directly from where it came from. So either they are where the information came from, they were there when the information was given, or you know, they were told it directly from the person that it came from. They are not an indirect source. Now, indirect sources are good sources sometimes, but not always reliable, because they're getting it from a friend. Like Gino heard it from the source, and then he's telling me, well, that's indirect. Or, you know, I overheard it from a friend talking about it with another friend that he heard from another friend. That's indirect too. So, you know, this guy right here, he's a direct source. So I would say that the likelihood of this being true is pretty high.
Yeah.
And is this going to happen? I think so. And I do think it's going to happen this summer. But one thing I want you guys to be wary of is the reason why and the timing of everything. This doesn't right away make anything legal. This doesn't really do anything other than study it. We don't know the timeline of when it's going to be finished. We're given a date of 2027, but we're not too sure exactly when. And we really don't know even if it's going to be in 2027 right now, because they could change it. And also it's an election year too. So we have to keep all those things in mind when we're looking at this, come to your own conclusions on it. But for me, myself, personally, I'm a little weary on the reasoning behind it, because this could have been done a long time ago.
But like you said, yeah, it could have been done a long time ago. It should have been done a long time ago, decades ago, if I actually went out and think about it. But, sometimes politicians have a general way of just keeping different subjects and different things alive just so they have something to talk about, So, the fact that they would always say, have that I advocate for legalization, but they never move towards it, means they have a talking point that they can use all the time.
They can support it all day.
The sad truth about politics is most of the time it's just something to talk about so that they can get their votes.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not necessarily anything that they really do.
No, and I hear that all the time. It's like, oh yeah, and I agree with you, but then they actively don't do anything to fix what we talked about. So we see it all the time. We see it, politicians, we see right through it. But what can we do other than vote for somebody?
It's the lesser of two evils. It's if you have to vote between Satan and the devil, which one do you choose?
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of how, especially these days, like,
we're not that we're turning into anything political right now, but we're just saying politicians,
they're kind of all the same these days.
All right,
they're all made in the same factory.
I don't know.
But that's pretty much all I had for that one. I thought it was interesting, and it's something to talk about and also be aware of, because this is something that's coming down the pipeline, and we're going to see this everywhere once it's announced. You're going to have so much misinformation. You're going to have so many people claiming that it's going to be legal, just like the executive order for the rescheduling thing. People are like, Donald Trump rescheduled cannabis. I'm like, no, he didn't. Like, well, he signed an executive order. I'm like,
It still has to go through
the whole process.
It has to go through the process. I don't necessarily think it has to go through a congressional thing, but
no, the DEA is really the only one holding this up right now.
So it's more like the rules to everything. It has to be changing in the rules. Now you could go for a legalization.
Through Congress, of course.
Which would be a more permanent way of getting things done. But once again, the politicians,
right? Dealing with government.
Do politicians thing. It's like, I think the general thing is you take your oath of office and then sit down and let the fuckery begin.
Oh, that's what it feels like too. So it's almost like, we need a reset or something like that over there, because
careful what you ask for, because
I know. I shouldn't
might
say
be
that.
going through.
Yeah, you're right. I shouldn't say that. Oh man, yeah, we're not trying to get political. I was just speaking there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's hope that something good comes from this, and it even happens in the first place, or it even finishes on time that it says. But don't make a decision until afterwards. They're hoping that you do before they give you the information and you vote off of that. don't do that. Just wait. Vote off of other stuff in key issues, not that one, because that's something that's going to take time.
Take the whole thing as a whole.
Yeah.
Because damn it, I'm going to get a little bit political. One issue voting is just a problem because they might have that one issue that you're going to vote on, but then they have 10 others that will just, like, politicians, that the fuckery will happen with you. And I just like saying that word you made.
Yeah.
So
the fuckery, the fucking.
Yeah. So all of that stuff. So politicians have a tendency to do that. So take a look at the whole, just be informed, do some research.
Yeah.
Make your decisions, whatever you decide.
Yeah. Because the government's really, figuring out this whole process as we go too. It's not like they know exactly how to do this because they've never done it before. So we'll see what happens. And I can just only hope for good from this commission. So that's really all I got on that one. What about you?
That's about it. I just wanted to let everybody know I'm not doing anything weird on the side. I just have allergies.
Tis the season. Those trees are putting out the pollen here soon. So the next topic we got, this one has to deal with Texas. Texas seems to be doing all kinds of stuff lately. As you guys know, they're in the process of making a bunch of changes. So the way that their hemp industry goes, it goes through a DSHS kind of authority. Okay. And they're the ones who make the rules and stuff like that. Like, some of like the CCD does here in New Mexico for us in the cannabis industry. They're not directly like, for one industry. It's like several blanketed under it. And they deal with this kind of like RLD is, over CCD. Yeah. So RLD is like the blanket one that controls all of them, and CCD falls under that. So they announced that they finalized, the rules and everything that they had proposed. And the advocates in Texas, man, they're doing a really great job. But for some reason, there's still a disconnect when it comes to the government and what's really needed and wanted in Texas. Because come March 31st, all THCA and all smokable products gone out the window. And I don't mean THCA gone totally. It's going to have to match that 0.3 percentage that the other THCs have to go along, and other compounds have to go along with too as well. They changed that to close a loophole that was being used in Texas, because THCA, as you guys know, is the acid is what it stands for, and it's dissolved with heat, or dissolved. It goes away with heat, and then you're left with the psychoactive compound of THC. So THCA alone isn't psychoactive, but once you heat it up, or decarboxylate it, it'll turn into the psychoactive compound of THC. And so they found the loophole, and then they closed it now. So this is unfortunate. It's going to impact that industry heavily. Will New Mexico benefit from it? Maybe we might see a little uptick of people buying here a little bit more, maybe, or something like that, because they're not going to be able to find smokable flower like they were before.
Okay.
And so the outlet that they're going to find is either the traditional market, which most of them probably will go to, and then go into other states, surrounding states, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Louisiana, to get their cannabis that way. And here in New Mexico, we have reciprocity. So if you have a medical cannabis card, you just come and pick up, and you're good that way. You don't pay taxes. So that's an unfortunate change. Another thing that they changed, they increased the price for a manufacturing facility. It was $25K, but then they negotiated and brought it down to 10, which is still quite a bit. Yeah, yeah. I'm like, a negotiation.
Well, that's better.
Yeah, I'm like, better, but okay, that's a little expensive. And then for every retail, you're going to be paying, I believe, 5, and that was coming down from 10. And so 5 is a little bit more closer to New Mexico's pricing, actually, of what it costs for licensing here. At the end of the day, it's usually what you end up paying, because you pay not just retail, but you pay per location too on New Mexico on top of that. And I think a year or two ago, they just increased it.
Yeah, and that would be strictly medical in Texas, or?
This is for their hemp program.
Oh, for the hemp.
Yeah. The medical is something totally different. They have a whole monopoly on that, and a whole kind of thing on that. That's a whole different conversation. But yeah, let me clarify. This is for their hemp industry, the one that is pretty much all over the place in Texas, and just very thriving. At one point, and they probably still do have the largest cannabis industry in the nation because of that. But these changes right here could change that. It's a little damning to hear that they're going to charge people so much money just for a license. Like I get it. Some of them are making a lot of money, but at the same time, they have a lot of bills to pay. They have a lot of expenses and stuff. And I don't think that they're seeing that part of it, and don't get me wrong, if it's under hemp, it's federally legal. And so they are treated as regular businesses. But, other states we're not so, we're not so lucky in that sense, because we have to pay the 280E. But there's still a lot of cost that goes into what they have to do. They're even going to be pushing for, like a track and trace kind of thing. Kind of like, what we do here, and they're going to have to hire more people to do that, and so it's just adding more cost to the business, all the while that the state's trying to make more money off of it, because 10 grand is ridiculous, for a manufacturing facility. 25K was crazy, but 10K is like, whoa, dude, that's just a manufacturing facility. That's crazy. Like, what if they're just making hash rosin, or solventless and stuff? They're not using the crazy compounds, and that may be the reason why they did this, because they were under misunderstanding that was probably going to be the main use of it.
Being very unfamiliar with the manufacturing process, I don't know how much it would cost to go ahead and get any of that up, and $10,000 does seem like a lot, but like we said, it's better than 25, so 10K seems like at least they're going in the right direction and working on that. So
yeah, and hopefully it changes again. It looks like there's some advocates in Texas that are looking and pushing to change that. They're going to have a lawsuit more than likely here soon in the next few days.
Usually how you get things done.
Yeah, so they're going to sue the state, or the DSHS. I can't even remember what it stands for over in Texas, but that's what it's called, the DSHS. I want to call it the DHSSS or something like that.
Just call it the shiz.
The shit. Yeah, it is shit. So we'll see what happens there, man. I'm kind of weary to see what happens. We'll see what the lawsuit, what comes from that. Hopefully something good comes from that, and they can either halt some of these rules, or maybe come back to the negotiating table with the industry, because that's the problem with the government, is they refuse to talk to industry when it comes to stuff like this. And when they do, sometimes it's only key people within industry, like, oh, we're going to talk to these guys over here who are giving us a lot of money in donations, or we're going to talk to these guys over here. There's always some little shady shit that goes in there with it, and that's the unfortunate part. They should be talking to everybody, regardless of size of business or what they do or where they're at in the industry. Everybody has an opinion and have an experience, and I think that it's worth hearing that. And that's why I do the town halls and stuff too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Getting that information out. But Texas is a weird, and I'm not just talking about Austin right now, but Texas is just a weird, strange place, because like you said, I think they just had on their primary, they had a poll question on there about legalization, and you said it got like 80%.
Yeah, passed 80%.
Passed with 80%, or not passed, but 80% positive vote.
Yeah.
And then you have a lot of the politicians that were in their Congress trying to just straight ban hemp. And then the governor went around and said, wait a minute. So it's an interesting thing. It seems like they're very much trying to decide between two things, and they've got people on both sides that are just trying to fight their way through that. But like you said, the advocates seem to be doing a really good job, at least, of getting people informed and letting people know what's going on.
Yeah, because this had over almost 2,000 comments, I believe, when it came to the rules. So a lot of people were, letting them know what they felt, what they thought, blah, blah, blah. And it looks like they listened on some of it, but they didn't listen the whole way. That $10,000 is still like, oh, homie.
Well, at some point in time, you fall asleep in the meeting and you just forget stuff.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of writing that goes on with this. And that's where, this is becoming in Texas overregulated like it is in other states. And the unfortunate part is we went into cannabis legalization knowing that the only way we're going to get it done is to have it overly regulated, and then hope and push for it to get looser as time goes. But what happens with that is other states see that, don't know the reasoning why, don't give a shit, and then they just do it because, well, this other state did it, so it obviously must work, so that we're going to do it too. And that's how bad practices really kind of get recycled, in other places.
Yeah, see, that's the problem. Yeah, you may see some other state do this and think, oh, well, if we do that, that'll be just perfectly fine. But yeah, you don't see how much it screwed things up, or how bad it actually was, or how much it made it worse. If you are going to implement something, take a look at your own state. Talk to the people in your own state about whatever it is that you're dealing with. If it's, if they're talking about taking a closer look at some of the cannabis rules and the regulations and stuff like that, then talk to the growers, talk to the producers, talk to the, the people that are manufacturing, talk to the sellers, all of that stuff, from the bud tenders all the way down to the guy that puts that seed in the ground or wherever. I don't know. There's different ways of growing that stuff. I just go to the store and buy an apple. I don't know how it's grown or what's in there, but from everybody, from getting the plant grown to getting to the final product in your hand, talk to those people about how things are run and how things go. And that way you can probably design something specifically for your state and for your people that are here. Because what works in California is not going to work in New Mexico. What would work in Texas might not work here in New Mexico. What works here in New Mexico might not work for Texas or Oklahoma or something else like that. You've got to be able to go ahead and do that. But this is like that whole commission thing. I'm glad at least somebody's taking a look at it. Will they really take a look at things? We don't know. But if you have at least people looking at this problem and trying to figure out what the problems are instead of trying to solve for something they don't know about.
Yeah, exactly.
Why go into try some sort of try and figure out string theory if you don't even know any idea what a string is? I don't know.
Right, and this change from DSHS comes from the governor himself when he said, "I want regulation. Give us some framework." And they said, "Say less," and this is what they came up with. So it's one of those things where be careful what you ask for, and I always tell people, when you ask the government to do something, you usually get the worst version of it. And that's unfortunate. It shouldn't be the case, but this is at least, I guess it could have been worse, like some of the changes, but like this banning smokables, that is just terrible. Like, I don't know why they did that in the first place. That's going to cripple so many businesses in Texas that it's ridiculous. Now, you're still going to be able to do the drinks and the edibles and stuff like that. That looks like it's intact with some extra labeling and, the track and trace stuff. But for the most part, it's unfortunate that they're getting rid of the smoking aspect, and I don't know why. Because even in Arizona is going after smoking products too as well, because they just introduced a bill where you can get a fine and charged for smoking weed and people smelling it. Like it hasn't passed both chambers, but it's being debated, and it passed one of them already. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. Like, what about cigarette smoke? What about cow poop? What about oil smells? What about jet fuel? Arizona has quite a few Air Force bases, like they're home to actually the Air Force's graveyard for the aircraft.
Yeah, that's where they put all their...
Yeah, so come on now.
It's trying to gather my thoughts in here because the Benadryl is really kicking in. Is this what it's like when you... Anyway. As far as coming up with the rules and getting all that stuff like that, like I said, they just don't... It's almost like they're saying they want the information, but they don't bother to take a look at the information. They don't bother to go ahead and actually see what is wrong there. Like I said, it's trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist, or not taking a look at the problems that do exist.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you could just, it's like you come up with these imaginary problems because somebody doesn't like what the industry is doing and they want to do something else. So you create a problem, real or not, and then you solve that problem. And if it's not real problem that anybody's having, that's when everybody looks around and goes, what the?
Yeah.
What are you doing this for? What are you doing this for?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people in general, and a lot of politicians should really just ask this question. Why is this here? What do we need it for? What is it going to solve? But then again, that's asking politicians to think. Don't get me started. I'm not going to go there. But it is just, like I said, there's a whole other thing with unintended consequences once you pass something if you're not thinking it through.
Yeah.
But also that takes time, at least. And one of the best things about that, and something that you've advocated for, and I've seen you have results, is that if the way New Mexico did things, at least they make it somewhat easier to be able to change those things, or to try and make some of those changes, or to go ahead and say, okay, this isn't working right. Let's go ahead and do something about that. But that takes a lot of people that, those town halls, everything, bringing that up, going like, hey, this isn't working. We need to try something else right here.
Yeah.
And at least be willing to try other things to go ahead and make it work.
Yeah, because there's other ways to do it. And, like we said before, what works here doesn't work in other places. And so it's up to the individuals in those states to figure that out. And actually, we have someone here asking if they can ask a question. Sure, ask away.
Sure, yeah.
Rats are adorable.
I don't know anything, though. I'm just warning you right now. It's... What was I going to say? man, really I need to stop taking Benadryl in the middle of the day. But I can breathe.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, there you go. No, they just, I don't know. They just need to start listening to other people and listening to some of the problems. Don't try and solve a problem that doesn't exist.
And you're someone who's on the outside looking in on the industry too.
Yeah.
You know, you're not in the industry. I mean, technically, you know, from doing the show and everything, yeah. But you know, you're not operating like, you know, the other people are. So, you know, you're just looking in. You're not even a user, essentially.
Yeah, no.
You know, like you're just looking in, and you know, from just regular politics and how.
Although sometimes we've had some guests where I'm just kidding. I'm just joking with you guys. Everybody's been really, really cool. Except for the one time when they did bring a plant in here, and I'm like, "Holy cow!"
Oh yeah, the whole
the
studio smelled like freaking weed. It was hilarious.
For a few days, it was actually really, really funny. But no, you know, just take a look at the rules, find out what's working, change the things that aren't working, and try and make it. Because when everything is working and running properly, then the businesses are running smoothly. The product is getting out there. The product will get better. You know. The government's happy because they're getting their taxes and stuff like that. It makes it easier because nothing makes the government more happy than getting money.
Oh, 100%.
So, and if they want money, then find out what's the best way to make everything underneath that in the industry, everything work towards making more money, because if the growers, the dispensaries, you know, the bud tenders are making more money and then spending that money, then the state gets more money. And that's the whole thing. That's the way business works.
Yeah, 100%.
At least that's what they told me in school.
I know. I thought it was
may or may not have been one of those things I was paying attention to. So I don't know.
Some people didn't pay attention on the supply and demand part. So, you know, I get it.
Yeah. I can tell you this right now. Traditional market people understand supply and demand.
Oh, they do. 100%. Yeah.
Some of the best business people I've known.
Right. So that's pretty much all I have.
The government didn't get any taxes out of that. Anyway.
No, they don't. And, you know, they took them a long time to fucking figure that out.
Yeah. Anyway.
It's like, we have this 280E thing, but they're still not giving us taxes. We'll wonder why. But yeah, speaking of the 280E, we'll segue into that.
Now, that's what I was going to ask, because I knew we were going to talk about that there. Because for a lot of people that don't know, what exactly is 280E? I know it has to do with your taxes, but how does that affect everybody in the industry in there?
So 280E is a tax code within the IRS, you know, of course, in the federal government. And what it pretty much says is that if you sell illegal drugs, you still have to pay taxes. And it's a lot. It's about 40 to 50%. And so all retails in New Mexico, because you know every state's a little different, they all pay 280E.
Okay.
And it's like about 40 to 50%. They're a huge chunk of their revenue goes to 280E. So these places are already struggling off the bat. That's gone. And so I have to pay that. And then on top of it, they have the state tax that they have to, you know, worry about. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then we're finding out that the counties and cities have their own little taxes on top of it. Some are charging per square foot. Some are charging you for literally having a desk in your office and charging you taxes on the equipment that you have.
And the equipment that you have in use.
Yeah, and like here in Doña Ana, that's the case here. And some places aren't even aware of that. You know, you're supposed to be paying taxes on those as well. And so, like, these people are just getting nickel and dimed after that. And then at the end of the day, it's like, oh, wow, I came up with 10% of what I made to keep, or something less even sometimes.
Oh, yeah, much less.
And they was just an example, you know, of like how small, you know, it can be and is. But sometimes, yeah, it's even smaller than that. And some people not making a profit at all. You know, they're losing. And a lot of it has to go to strategy and the decisions that they made and everything. But 280E is a big reason why a lot of people are struggling in the cannabis industry nationwide. This isn't just a New Mexico thing. This is a nationwide tax that you have to pay. And that's how they got Al Capone. If you guys aren't aware, that's how Al Capone got popped, is 280E.
Yeah.
They couldn't get him on anything else, so they got him on tax evasion.
Yep.
And so that is how they got him, and that's their way of getting people like, we're not going to get you on this, but we'll get you on this. And even, this is kind of nerdy, even the Joker from Batman is deathly afraid of the IRS.
As he should be.
Exactly, right? There's an episode where, you know, someone comes and tells him how much he owes the IRS, and he like falls back in his chair and runs and grabs that amount, and he gives it to his friend, the guy that he's like, here, take it. He was like, what? You're just going to give it to him? He was like, yeah. I'm crazy enough to take on Batman, but not the IRS.
Yeah, the IRS is much scarier. And you know, and that's true when you think about all the things, because it's not, when you think about it, the taxation system, this is my rant that I was waiting for to
okay, here we go. Yeah.
You know, when you think about the taxation system in general here in the U.S., it's a fairly new system. It's really not as old as you think.
Yeah.
You know, what founding fathers did not have any idea about taxes.
Yeah.
But some of the things that are just really weird. If you buy a home, you buy a piece of land, it's weird. You buy it, you paid for it, it's yours. Even if it's paid off, guess what? Every year they'll say, well, your land is worth this much. You should give us part of it.
Yeah.
And you'll end up having to pay your taxes. Even like you said, the Al Capone stuff, the illegal stuff. The whole thing about, say, moonshiners out in the South is not that they were making alcohol. It's they were making money off of selling that alcohol. And because those bottles didn't have a tax stamp on it, that's why that's why they're called revenuers. The IRS revenuers going after the moonshiners in the hills because they needed their tax money on that whole thing. And now 280E, it just seems like another way of like, hey, you're going to do this stuff, you got to give us your cash. And it just seems like it's the biggest bunch of, I shall use your word, some of the biggest bunch of fuckery has to do with taxes and the whole thing in general.
Yeah.
Don't ask me about that state of New Mexico.
That's a whole new animal on its own. Then you got your state taxes on top of it, and your local taxes,
city taxes, county taxes, you know. And then every time you buy or sell something, you're paying a tax on that.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, how much of a dollar if you spend $1, how much are you actually spending as opposed to what goes to the government?
Yeah. Because you get taxed on
I feel like, once again, I'm getting this close to old man, yelling at clouds, going off about the government's just a big old scam.
And what, to be honest, these days I've been noticing the younger crowd is kind of getting to that point too. So it just might be people are getting to the point of being tired of being taxed.
Every 16-year-old has gone through that moment where they get that job and they work their 20 hours a week, or they work their so-called job, and then they get their first check and they're going like, what the
Yeah.
Because the government takes the taxes out. The state takes the taxes out. The Medicaid, Social Security, they take all that tax out, and you're going like, I was supposed to have $150 for this week. Now I've got 80.
Yeah. It's like, what? and like,
I'm trying not to get on that soapbox because it'll go, and I will. But the whole scam, the whole. Geez, I just went into yelling at clouds again. It's like, the whole IRS is just a Ponzi scheme. It's just all a scam.
and that's how it feels sometimes, because
it does.
Because the reason why I brought this up in the first place as a topic was Ultra Health here in New Mexico, as we all know.
I saw
so
that.
they actually sued the government over 280E, arguing that cannabis, and the argument, to be honest, I was like, ooh, that's a far-fetched argument, but see where it goes, is that they haven't fully described what's on Schedule 1 and what is, or something like that. They're really arguing the scheduling and the wording of it, and like there's no definition or something, and there's not enough information, blah, blah, blah. Now, I think it's a silly argument, but at the same time, it's not, because we just had SCOTUS, what we talked about it last week or the week before. We had that gun argument where they actually attacked the scheduling. Like, okay, we have this on Schedule 1, this on Schedule 2, this on Schedule 3, but what's on Schedule 3 is more dangerous than what's on Schedule 1. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, the whole thing doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
What is a drunkard, Yeah, you're right. Well, I went back and listened to it, and they used that whole term.
Yeah.
Or the definition of a drunkard is.
Yeah.
What's a definition of a habitual user?
Yeah.
Or a
unlawful user.
Unlawful user.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole thing comes down to definitions, and it's just like everything. It's almost as if you guys are making me go all like coast to coast AM. It's almost as if it's vague enough on purpose to get away with things,
And I feel like for the longest time it was, and that's why they were getting away with it until they finally got challenged to the point where they couldn't deny it anymore, because now there's the reason why this didn't go anywhere, because there's no rulings around the nation that are similar to this argument. When it comes to the SCOTUS hearing we heard the other day, there's several rulings around the nation based along that same kind of ruling that they made, is that, well, the lower courts, a lot of lower courts made that, it is unconstitutional to take away their rights because they just use it once or twice or whatever. Like, You're right.
Yeah, it comes down to, because what you're talking about when you get into the Khomeini case with the Supreme Court is something that's in the Bill of Rights. We're talking a Second Amendment right here, so that's going to be something that they have. Unfortunately, there is no Bill of Rights for cannabis industry out there. However, there's a lot you could do. I really think we need to get more of the agricultural people involved with everything that's going on.
I do too.
The actual people that are growing out there. The actual people that know, how to properly use the land and everything, that they can go ahead and help out. Because at the end of the day, this is just a crop.
Yeah.
It's a crop that can be used for many different things in the hemp industry. It's a crop that can be used for many different things in the medical industry and other things like that. It's just not a far-fetched idea to understand that this is a plant that grows that can be used for many different things, and we need to take a look at it more.
Yeah, and the courts could decide that later on, because their arguments didn't hold up in the court right now. But I think depending on what SCOTUS rules in the future, in the summer, we might see this come up again.
And I think that what we need is some bunch of people to actually take the reins and be that old man yelling at the clouds and taking them to court and getting these challenges in there. Because the more you hear it, the more the arguments that you come up with, it's just takes a lot of time and money to try and get that done. And that's, as long as the 280 thing is there and they're taking half of your money for the most part, kind of hard to go ahead and finance that.
Right. Yeah. And we got a question right here too. It says, are they researching more way it could be used, or are problems in law preventing this? So federally, they can't because of the scheduling, and that's one reason why people want rescheduling to Schedule 3, is because that would open up research to cannabis like that. But the states, other countries, and other people like that are doing studies. It's just our government doesn't like to see or recognize those studies because of the scheduling of cannabis.
Did you say at one time that, like, once again, not to get on a political edge or anything else like that, but that one of the countries that's done the most research on cannabis was Israel?
Yeah, Israel is one of the most leading, I know how, political these days, but cannabis-wise, they are one of the most advanced countries when it comes to cannabis research. They've done the most, and they've had real-life, tests in hospitals and stuff with different compounds. And they've even gone down to, and I remember hearing this years ago, way before terpenes kind of took over and is starting to take over now versus THC. Israel was the one leading in categorizing and noting down cannabis cultivars based off of terpenes, because they found that it is more accurate to map cannabis genetics using terpenes than it is the actual like THC and other molecules. That's the most stable one throughout different cultivars that kind of remains the same. And that's why whenever you hear somebody, that's not sour diesel, that doesn't smell like sour diesel, that doesn't taste like sour diesel, it's because that's probably the most accurate marker for that one. And they showed the studies, they had like little dots and stuff, and they said, yeah, this is this cultivar from here, and it's supposed to be this, but it's not, because if you look, everything's on this side versus this side when it comes to the dots. So that one's a lie, and the one that it is actually this one. It's like, whoa, that's crazy. And they started coming up with names that were more pharmaceutical for cannabis, and the weird Latin
like, names. Does your dog bite, or
cat shit, or wasn't a cheetah piss is another one. Alaskan thunderfuck.
I swear, you guys come up with the craziest shit for names for all that stuff, but that's just me. I can sit there reading names like that for all day long.
I think toad venom is the most recent recent trend. Yeah.
One, I think this was maybe last year or so, several months ago, because I stream on Twitch Sunday nights. Tickle this one too. Anyway, but we played a game while we were playing. We were just blowing up a bunch of robots and stuff in Helldivers 2. We played a game where it was like cannabis or racehorse.
What?
And I had a list of names, and I would read them out, and they're going like, "Oh, that's a racehorse." It's like, nope.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's hilarious. Because the racehorses have just as worse names. You're right. Yeah, it took me a second. Sorry. That's funny. I don't watch racehorses that much, but that makes sense because the times that I have seen it, they have some random ass names.
They have some random names.
They are like.
I'm going to tell you this: if you want a great game to play with your friends, just look up the internet racehorse names look up the internet for different cannabis cultivars or anything else like that, and just have a blast with that one because it is really fun. But that was kind of going off on this whole thing. But to answer his question, the idea of doing these studies like that, why aren't we doing that? And part of it is the rescheduling thing that you said, right? But we have more research on stuff like, all the opiates, all the opioids, the fentanyl. We're in New Mexico. We're getting more research on psilocybin. I can say that. We're getting more research on psilocybin right here in New Mexico because of what they passed last year, right?
Yeah, well,
yeah,
they've been studying it for a while. Yeah, they've been doing it for a while.
Then we are on cannabis right now, which as long as cannabis has been around, we should know just about everything we need to know about it.
Yeah.
But that stigma, that whole thing, that reefer madness idea is stopping all that research from, people. There are plants that we don't even know about that can help us out. But the plants that we do know about, we should study them and see what they can do.
Yeah, 100%. Because we've relied too much on,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go off on that.
No. We relied too much on pills and chemicals and stuff. When the answer might be right in front of us in a different form.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to always be in pill form. It doesn't always have to be in another form. Like having stomach issues, maybe it's just an imbalance of your microbes in your stomach, or maybe you're not chewing enough. Some people found out that I had stomach issues because I wasn't chewing enough.
Or maybe I shouldn't have eaten that whole pizza.
Yeah, that whole pizza, or something too greasy, or maybe I'm just allergic to something.
Yeah.
It's not always, fixable with, the pills, or it's not always the route you have to go.
And even a lot of the pills that we do have, some of that research has been done because it started off with other plants, anything else like that. Ancient Egyptians knew about aspirin.
Yeah,
because it was like a miracle kind of drug, and if you use aspirin properly, it's amazing. It does wonders for stuff. But like I said, with what we have and the plants and the products that we have now, why are we? Oh, I'm boring you now.
No.
This is why they had those.
I got you off track.
This is why they had those categories when we were looking at it.
Yeah. This is why they do that.
No, but it's like we've had all these stuff for years. Why haven't we said it? Why haven't we taken a look at it? And is it just us as Americans that haven't done that, or is it because it seems like the rest of the world is really taken more of a role in studying some of these things than anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, even
we're
Germany.
not trusting them. Yeah, even Germany.
They legalized it straight up.
Yeah.
That one threw me off when it happened a couple years ago. I was like, good for you guys. They took a little more conservative approach at first, but their whole country, and we're still sitting here fighting between medical hemp and fucking state legalization. So until something on the federal front changes, we're going to be stuck with this confusing mess.
So, fingers crossed, if Trump gets that commission going, that it actually does something. We actually take steps towards at least rescheduling, if not just straight up descheduling, and get it done and over with. Yeah. Because like I said, for all the states that have gone legal, has anybody noticed the difference from when it was legal and when it was not legal?
I think the most people that notice are the ones paying attention and the ones in the industry. Mm-hmm. They're the ones who notice it the most. I.e. old people who stay at home.
Yeah, but let's be honest, they've been growing their own for a while.
Yeah, exactly. But on this issue, with the tax thing, we probably really won't get a real change until SCOTUS makes a ruling, Congress gets their head out their ass, or DEA finally makes a decision on the scheduling.
So, like I'm saying, let's get big cannabis involved and get those court dates going.
Yeah.
Bring up the issues and make them take a look at it.
Yeah, because Duke was followed. A bunch of other people kind of joined in with him, other businesses with this lawsuit. It just so happened that he's from New Mexico. So I kind of see this being another attempt if that SCOTUS ruling, like I said, for the gun things goes the way that I think it might, where I think they're actually not just going to go after the argument of, who's addicted, but also the scheduling and how the fuck did shit get on here the way it did.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's weird.
Because, that case will have a wide effect on that because, like you said, what is an habitual user? What is what is a drunkard? What is it?
Yeah.
What is it that makes you impaired enough to not be able to do that? Because, it's not like you have on that form, if you have 3 or 4 drinks every other day, that you can't own a weapon.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Like no one's going after them. Because I mean, the argument they're making, in the ultra health one is fairly similar to the one that they were making with the patients owning guns thing, cannabis patients owning guns. But the difference is they had the other court rulings to back them. This one is one of the first of its kind in a sense, is what it seems like, or it just hasn't. We haven't had a court agree, but this is an IRS court. This is the tax court. So that one's a lot harder.
Yeah,
this isn't like
those guys don't cheat.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it might be the first one, but don't let it be the last.
Yeah.
You've got to force the subject maybe sometimes.
Yeah.
And if you have, one of the best ways to do that is through the courts.
Yeah.
So,
because I mean, the courts are being stubborn because the DA hasn't made their final say on rescheduling anything, because that was one of the arguments that they made. Is like, well, the government said that it isn't harmless and they're going to do Schedule 3, and the judge is like, yeah, but they haven't yet. So like, I can't do anything. I'm like, oh fuck, that's fair. It sucks when the judge is fair. But at the same time, we really don't know, because there's a lot of weird stuff going on. So we'll see.
Yeah. As far as all the legalization stuff, maybe we should get Biggie's partner on sometime, and because he's the lawyer, right?
Yeah, he is. Yeah. Maybe we will. I mean, it's worth an ask.
Yeah, was it Cannabis Legalization Network?
Yeah.
Channel.
Tom is the name of the lawyer. Yeah. It'd be great to have him on. They're busy though, so we'll see. I'll hit up Miggy and see if.
Yeah, I'm just saying that from that legal point to get some of those things on there, and why aren't people pushing it?
Yeah. I don't either. So we'll see, but. We'll wait for the changes, and next week if something happens, I'll let y'all know. I don't think anything will change on the stuff that I told you guys about within that time. No. So we'll see what happens next week. Who knows? Maybe we'll be here next week. Maybe we won't, because the world won't be here. Just kidding.
I love your positivity, Chad.
Dark joke.
You didn't. I had so many jokes to go on when we got to the Germans, but I'm going to let that one go.
So, all right, everybody, that's all I have for this week. I'll be back next week, or maybe I'm just kidding. We'll be back next week with another episode of #Grassy Logic. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, whatever you got to do to stay in the know. And we'll see what happens with this cannabis stuff. All right, guys. See you. Shoots.
Woo!